Love heals all. So we've been talking about love healing all. In the first 2 weeks, we were dealing about the love healing the dark side of ourselves, the difficult parts of ourselves, the anger, the sadness, the limitations. And then starting last week, we were talking about a different type of healing, that love not only wants to heal and remember its wholeness as us, that all aspects of how we show up in the world are included in our wholeness. We don't want to reject parts of ourselves. And the other way love wants to heal is it doesn't want to be repressed. It's interesting, you talked about 12-step today, and we were just, part of our reading with Ernest Holmes was about addiction. And he was saying that all addiction was a blocking of the life's desire to fully express. That life has to fully express. There's this divine urge to express. And when we block that, then it starts coming out distorted in distorted ways in our life. And so we are here to fully express. And that is another way in which we heal. If we're not fully living out loud, giving of our gifts to the world, we're going to start to experience blocked energy, things showing up, blocked relationships, blocked health, because we're not fully living out loud. So the movie this month is Miracle. Okay, has anyone seen the movie? A few. You just saw it this week? Did you like it? Yeah. Did you cry? Yes. Miracle. So it's about the U.S. hockey team winning the Winter Olympics in 1980. I actually remember watching that. Yeah, do you remember watching it? It's so great. So where do these miracles show up? When I was 25 years old, it was actually on my birthday. I was sitting on a bed, and I just had spontaneously bought a Life magazine where they had these pictures of the fetus growing in the mother's womb. And I never seen pictures, just they were beautiful. And I'm just going page after page of just seeing, and I'm looking at them like, this is the miracle. You know, thousands of babies are born every moment. It's so normal. It happens all the time. But to actually stop and see what's happening, it was just, and as I was having this experience of, this is a miracle, this light came out, and it came out through my third eye, and suddenly I'm seeing myself birthing a baby. And I knew in that moment that I was going to have a baby, and that wasn't of me. That vision, we start to see things, when we actually come to us, we start to see what's possible when we see the impossible in the ordinary. When we recognize that every moment is a miracle. That us just being here, our bodies, showing up in this building, it's a miracle. When we start being willing to see as everything that's happening that seems so normal, so mundane, as the miracle of God, the details of life, the miracle of God, then we start to open up to other possibilities. We start to see things we wouldn't normally see. And then when we catch that vision, and sometimes it can feel very godly, and in the case of, what I like, the story of Herb Brooks, who is the coach of the U.S. Olympic hockey team, is that it wasn't some big spiritual experience. I tend to see things through spiritual eyes, but we have to recognize you don't have to be spiritual to catch a vision, to catch something that is greater than has ever happened before. People see the possibility of what hasn't been done. The question is, when you see that possibility, what do you do with it? So I know Reverend Michael, who started Agape. Agape is now this big, mega spiritual, but not religious, spiritual community in Los Angeles. Sorry. And he was in the movie The Secret. But that whole vision started, the story is that it started with a group of 20 people visioning every week. But I remember interviewing him about starting a center from nothing. And he said, actually, he spent a year on his own catching the vision. And then he went to the group of 20 people and visioned with them for a year. So if your vision includes other people, there's a part of you that has to be anchored in that vision, and then it's opening up to other people. And so for me, I had a vision of being a minister, and I didn't say anything to anybody for years. For years. And actually until I was well into ministerial school did I tell them about the vision. Because there's a place we were talking about this yesterday too, there's a place of secret, sacred, and silent. That when we catch an idea, if it's a vision that other people have not seen and has not happened yet, they're not going to jump on board with you and say, oh, that's a great idea. People tend to go, well, has it been done before? Has it ever worked before? And then they start trying to figure out in their own head, and if they don't have a paradigm that fits into, they can't really jump into that vision with you. So whether you're doing a vision that's going to include other people or it's a vision for your own life, of doing something in your own life that's different, you want to be careful about sharing it. Because there are people who, even as much as they love and support you, they can't see it. And sometimes we can't even see it for them ourselves. So when I had the vision for being a minister, I couldn't see that for myself even. I kept saying yes and following the steps, but it was so beyond how I perceived myself. And it was certainly beyond anything my family perceived about me, because I was so shy and introverted, the last thing that any of us could perceive it. So if I kept telling people about the vision at the time, it would have just been, there would have been no support for it. So I just kept it inwardly, and I had to deal with the different blocks as they came along. And then as I started facing those things, then I could talk about it a little bit more, because I was more committed, I was more anchored, I'm going to do this. In the case of Herb Brooks, he's an interesting guy. So he has this vision, and he meets with the Olympic Committee. He wants to get hired. He tells them just enough of the vision to get hired. But it's clear they're not catching it, because it's something very different than what's ever been done before. Just to give you a little background, the U.S. Olympic hockey team won the Olympics in the 1960 Olympics, and had never won since. Remember, there's this Cold War between the United States and Russia. Russia's team had won the gold every Olympics after that. So, and they were pretty much considered unstoppable. And then even when the All-Stars, our NHL team, the professionals, they took the All-Stars of the NHL team and played the Russia team, and they still got beat by a lot. So this Russian team had this idea of just, they were unstoppable. So the relation we make into our own life, are there patterns in our own life that just seem unbeatable? Like we've overcome some things, but there's just certain things you just hit up against over and over, and you just say, that's a wall I just can't get past. Or in our family, or in our community, there's certain walls I just can't get past. I can do a lot of things, but I just can't get past this. It's indomitable. That's what the Russian hockey team represents. The indomitable block that is impossible for anyone to beat, even the best of our best, even the best of our NHL team. So Herb Brooks has a whole different idea than what's been done before, how to beat them. But the people that are like, this doesn't make any sense, we don't get it. You don't play hockey this way, first of all. And second of all, you can't take all these college kids who have never played together and create a team like that to beat the Russians. You're living in fantasy land. He said, well, maybe I am, but we can't do worse than we've done before. And that's actually important. You know, I've just noticed you had a line in there about you have to know how to lose before you win. And I was just reading an article this morning, if I remember, I'll post it on Facebook, about how Google hires. Google everyone wants to work at Google, and they're not looking for the best of the best. They say, we don't look at GPAs, we don't look at tests, because we actually found that had no relation to how people show up in the workplace. We actually don't want people who have never failed. He said a lot of those high-achieving people, they're so used to achieving that when they don't achieve, when an idea doesn't work, they blame somebody, or they freak out, or they try to cover up their mistake because they have to win. They're so attached. He said it's the people who've had a lot of failure in their life and know how to deal with it, who aren't afraid of it. So when it shows up, they've tried a new idea, it doesn't work, they just shift to something new. They just keep moving on. They don't freak out. They're not, oh my gosh, I failed and I got to do all this stuff. Like, oh yeah, I failed. Let's do something else. And I just find that so interesting that there's a freedom there. So they hired Herb Brooks because as much as different as he was, everything else had failed against this indomitable block. And we know if something's going to work, it's going to have to be different. So he takes over this team. Now, he does it maybe a little differently because he really keeps the vision of how he's going to create this team to win from anybody else. He doesn't really share his vision with other people. But other people are catching it. And so sometimes that vision isn't always coming through us. Sometimes I catch someone else's vision and I get excited about it because ultimately a vision doesn't belong to any one person. The vision belongs to God. It's God's vision. A person may catch it and begin to start living it and articulating it, but that vision could also call you. And so I've given this example before. When I lived in Virginia, right outside D.C., and I used to get Reverend Michael's talks sent. He talked twice a week, 2 different services, Sunday and Wednesday. 2 totally different themes. Amazing. And I would get them sent to me, and I would listen to them and listen to them. But when it came to really wanting to be part of a community, I was growing, I was going into practitioner training, and suddenly I realized I wanted to go to Agape. I did not have to travel across country, move my life across country to hear him speak, to even hear the music. I could hear that every week by myself in my room in Falls Church, Virginia. I went across country for the community because there was the thing that used to amaze me when I would listen to it, and he would give these talks, and I'd hear all the people in the background, and I would get so choked up. I thought, they love God that much? He's found a whole group of people that love God as much as what he's talking about? And I was so excited by that energy of all the people who were as excited by this way of living as I was. So I was willing to move my life across country to be around a lot of other people who were catching this vision of there's a new way to live life. There's another way to live life that where God is the center of everything you do. It's not like, can I fit my spiritual practices in with my busy day? Can I fit my busy day in with my spiritual practices? It's a different order of things. God's first in my life, no matter what. In my day, everything else is secondary. My spiritual practices, my life in God is first. And to be in a community that lives from that vision, where simply we are here for God, simply that is my life, was what drove me. So the vision, it may come through us, it may come through somebody else, but it belongs to a whole bunch of people. Nobody is an island. That whatever vision that we have, it belongs to other people in our life, whether it's with people in our family, whether it's our community, whoever that is, that vision is multiple fold. So we're listening to whether it belongs to someone else or to us, but eventually we all have to own it. We all have to say, this is why I'm here. So in the movie, the way Herb Brooks does it is he never tells them. So he asks all these players, who are you? And they all say their name, where are you from? Who do you play for? And they all say their college teams, and there were old college rivalries that were on the same team. And he never tells them anything different. He says, okay. They've introduced themselves, but they had these miserable games against playing other team, and so finally he just said, you're not working hard enough, and he's working them. He's having them skate, and they're just to the point of exhaustion. And finally, one of the players, who ends up being the captain, says, I'm Aruzio. Mike? Is it Mike Aruzio? And he says, who do you play for? It says the U.S. hockey team. I play for the United States of America. And that was the first time it shifted. They said, okay, you're done. As soon as they got it, the pushing them stopped. But he waited until they got it for themselves. He didn't say, you're playing for the United States of America, I want to hear you say it. He waited until they caught the idea themselves. And I find that so interesting because that's exactly what Reverend Michael did. When he got the vision for what this church was, and he had been visioning it for a year, he didn't go in with this 20 people and say, well, here's the vision, and this is what we're going to do. They visioned every week until everyone else was getting it from within themselves. So everyone else was tapping into that vision for their life. So it creates a community sense of buy-in. This doesn't belong to. It may come through first a leader or anybody, but it's not going to work if it comes top down. That vision belongs to everybody. If you're here, you're part of that vision, but you have to catch it. You have to get and see it and articulate it and feel it and want it and live it and be alive in that vision too. And so that is how we begin to bring these miracles that we start to see into form, into life, is by catching it, to feeling it, talking about it, creating it with like-minded people and saying, this is who I am, this is where I see us becoming, and I'm part of it. This is how I'm part of it. And we start claiming how I am going to be part of this vision. When we do a visioning process, the question is what is my role in this visioning process? How do I play my role? So we're beginning to listen and we're following through. The other great thing about when we get a vision, at least I can say this when it comes from God. It happened to work out in this movie Miracle. But I know this when it's a vision from God, we know there's inherent success in it. That there is, if we've been given a vision, all that we need for it to be fulfilled is going to happen. Now, sometimes that can happen over many years. Like I had that vision of having Julian. It was 13 years later before I actually birthed the baby, where I actually exactly as I saw in that vision 13 years earlier happened, but it happened 13 years later. When I had, same thing with ministry. I got the vision, it was many years before I became a minister. So sometimes it takes a lot of years. What's exciting about a movie like Miracle is it's all very condensed. They had less than a year to get all these people together and to create a miracle, so you can see those transitions, and that's why I think it's so emotional when you see it, because we all feel those times where we come up against blocks, all those things that we say that are impossible, and yet when we go through it, it's just so expansive. And here you get to watch a movie where all it happens in a short time. And again, he does not pick the best of the best. He picks his team from, he's been studying and planning. There's always work involved, by the way. Living a vision is not effortless. He worked his butt off. And anyone who lives, but it's different. You're doing it differently than you would do it normally. I'm sorry I'm tracking, but I'm just thinking, like when I went through ministerial school, and I was talking to the students yesterday about this, because I was so clear about the vision of ministry, I wasn't interested in the grades. And it's so interesting when people enter ministerial school, they just carry that same academic need, I got to get good grades, because we're an accredited whatever program, and I got to have the grades on my roster. And I said, I have graduated 14 years ago. No one has ever looked at my grades. Nobody cares about your grades. They want to know who you are. And when I went through ministerial school, because I was so clear my grades weren't important, I did the work that I wanted to do. I claimed, I'm doing the school for me, not for you, for the teachers. So I actually would write the teachers and say, well, I don't like that paper. Here's not how I want to write it. And they always let me. That's always surprised me. I would have never thought to have done that before. And these were college professors. And I said, I'm like, wow, that really works. Just go with your passion. I'm like, I'm more passionate about this idea. Okay, do that. So but that's the point, is that when we start living from a vision, we start doing things differently. That's why the habits are being broken. We're starting to see, you know what, the way I've been doing it all the way up until now, even though it looked exactly the same, we had tons of papers and books to read and all the normal academic stuff, because they wanted to be a accredited graduate school. It looked the same, but I was different. Reverend Michael created a spiritual center. You can say ultimately it's no different than any other spiritual center. They have a service every Sunday, all the normal things, but it was coming from a completely different place inside. Herb Brooks is leading a hockey team, but he's coming from a different place. He shifted how he understood to play this game. And because he shifted, even though it was still the same game, hockey, and they're still having the same practice, he's coming from a different place and doing it. When we catch a different idea, and again, we catch those different ideas when we see life as a miracle in the ordinary and mundane. We start opening our eyes to see that which the eyes cannot see, and hear what the ears cannot hear, that is happening in every moment, including now. We start to see with those eyes and hear with the ears and feel with the heart. We start to see new ways of doing things. And that's what begins to break down those old habits and finding new ways to do things. Again, it can take years, or it can happen all at once. 3 days before before we join the Olympics start, the United States hockey team played Russia. They were beaten 10-3 or something. They were completely destroyed, as always. The Russian team hadn't lost a game in 42 games. So it's right before the Olympics. There's no sign that all this stuff that Herb Brooks has done, all this new way that he was doing things, there's no sign that it made any difference whatsoever. They were still slaughtered by the Russian team. So the pivotal moment in that movie is the next game. They play Sweden. It's the first game in the Olympics. And to me, that was just the most exciting game, because when they play Sweden, it looks like Sweden's going to win, and they're 1 goal ahead, and the game's almost over. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, go! Or 5, go! They tied the game. They didn't win, but they didn't lose. They tied in the very last second. And in that moment, to me, suddenly the pattern just shifted. America, this team that tend to be amateurs and Olympics, never did very well, played Sweden, which was, I think, the second-rated team at the time, second or third-rated world team, and they tied in the last few seconds. In that moment, that habit pattern said, there's a little shift here. We didn't lose. We're not out of it. And from that moment on, they started winning every game. That happens in our life. We keep hitting against this wall. We keep hitting this wall. But now we see a vision of maybe doing it a little bit differently. And at first, we might not see any result. The same wall keeps showing up. Wait, I'm doing it differently. How come that wall's not coming down? But don't give up. What is it they say? Don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle. If you saw a vision and you're living in alignment with that vision, walk in the trust and the faith that that vision is going to be successful. We do not know when. We do not know the how, but we know the what. And that vision is real, and it will give us what we need to succeed. So even if that wall keeps showing up, keep saying yes. And eventually something's going to change. And so they win game after game, and then you have the big game against Russia. It wasn't the final game, but it was the big game because no one ever beats Russia. They were indomitable. They finally come against the block, this block for 20 years that nobody could beat this team. They were indomitable, that wall within us. And they win. And then you cry. That's of the movie. Then they go on. They didn't even show the gold medal round. They just say, oh, yeah, and then they beat Finland and won the gold. Sort of, by the way. Because the real moment is when you break through that wall in your life. When you've had the same wall for year after year after year. It was 20 years, this team, the Russian team, they were like a machine, they said. They just could not be beaten. You have this wall, 20 years, you've been beating your head against this one wall in your life. And it just seems like it's never going to break. Then there's that moment where it breaks. And you realize that miracle that you saw originally was real. It wasn't just in the ethers. It's real and it's in form. And that's the life we are here to lead. That's the love that heals all. To recognize that this love, this vision, is asking us to break through all our walls and all our barriers. That we are here to succeed, to be fulfilled and fully express our dreams and our visions. And that we will be supported in succeeding in living our dreams and our visions. Every one of us. There's no lack or abundance. It's not some people succeed and other people don't. Everyone is inherently successful when we listen and live from the power and the presence of God. When we live from that vision, we will succeed. How and when? I don't know. We don't know. But we just keep saying yes. We walk in that faith. And those things that seem impossible, that's why we love these movies. Because we know inside of our soul, we know inside of our heart that it's possible to move past those things that seem impossible. Dream the impossible dream. See, aren't you glad I didn't ask you to sing that one? Just popped in my head. Every day is a miracle. Every moment's a miracle. God gave us these little eyelashes that make sure we blink to keep out the dust. Give us these little fingernails. I mean, all the little things just that are happening all the time that we don't even notice. But we just need to start noticing and becoming aware of all the amazing... I mean, we're sitting in this room. We have completely different journeys, every one of us. We didn't know... We barely knew each other before we came here, and yet here we are, Sunday morning. Sheila's just started an Open Lotus Center, and now we're in this great space, and we have this guy singing every week, and we have people... I mean, it's a miracle. We didn't make this happen. There's something bigger moving in us. There's this incredible oceanic love washing over us. It's saying we can become more and more and more than we ever thought we could be. So my invitation this week is very, very simple. It's have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and the heart to feel God's living miracles that are happening in your life every day. Just witness them, see them, adore them, be in love with God as life, as the everyday mundane life, full and overflowing in miracles. You are a miracle. Let us pray. How grateful I am to dance and to celebrate and to feel the joy and the power and the presence and the love of God that is in, through, and as all creation that surrounds and unfolds all of us right here in this moment. It surrounds me. It surrounds the people in this room. It surrounds our children. It surrounds this Bay Area, the nation, the planet, the cosmos, the billions and billions of galaxies, the multidimensionals and other multidimensional planes of existence, and that which is beyond all time and all space and all planes. It is so beyond anything we can even humanly conceive, and yet it is more intimate than our very breath. It is this passionate, oceanic love that loves itself deeply as each and every one of us in this room. It knows everything that we've ever felt, thought, seen, or tasted, or touched. It is our very life. It is a life that is truly full of miracles in every moment. The conversations that we have, the experiences that we have, the relationships that we have, the life that we have now is God's miracle. May we see with God's eyes, may we hear with God's ears, may we feel with God's heart, and recognize that we are just the living, great, creative, beautiful, magnificent emanations of pure love right now. And I just live in so much gratitude to be in a room full of people who are conscious, who have remembered to remember who and what they really are, and that we are consciously recognizing who and what each other are. And from this becomes a greater and greater expansion of love into form than we've ever before realized. That we are a place of healing and transformation, not only for our own individual lives, but for the people in our lives, our family, our friends, our community, and for this planet as world citizens. We are that healing place because we are fully expressing on every level and dimension of our being, physically, emotionally, mentally, subtly, causally, on every level, we are expressing the fullness and the glory of this infinite oceanic love, this love that knows no bounds. We are here to express the creativity, the abundance, the beauty, the freedom, the unlimited joy that is pure spirit. We radiate that not because we will it, but because we remember to remember that is who we always already are. We are the living miracles. And it is as these living miracles, we see new ways to do things. We see new ways to live. We see new ways to show up. And we say yes, and we step into those new ways. We are willing to live in those new ways, in ways that we've never done before. And so for the willingness and for the openness and for the generosity of pure spirit flowing through and as everyone in this room, and for that healing energy, I just say thank you, Mother, Father, God. Thank you, infinite and eternal one. I in deep and abiding joy, just so grateful for the fulfillment of this word here and now. And if there's anyone in our lives that are calling forth for prayer, I ask us to say those names out loud to be blessed by this healing energy. Please call their names out now. Deep has called unto deep, and deep is answering deep. Even now, the fulfillment of this word and this energy and the fulfillment of love is now happening in, through, and as our conscious embodiment. Thank you, God. I release this word and I let it be, knowing that as it is spoken, it truly is already done. I invite us all to say together now, and so it is. Amen.